Hi, so welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about just two of the organelles in the cells, and those are ribosomes and lysosomes. So we'll be touching briefly on the structure of ribosomes and lysosomes, as well as their function and their location within the cell. So in this diagram, you can see these green orbs, or these like hydrolytic sacs, people call them, are the lysosomes. And the ribosomes are these little red dots. You can see a few of them are attached to the rough ER, and then there's other ones that are floating free throughout the cytoplasm of the cell. So we'll start off with ribosomes today. You can think of ribosomes as the protein factories of the cell. They're present in both eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. As we mentioned before, they can float in the cytoplasm or they can be bound to the rough ER. It's important to note that prokaryotes do not have an ER. So in prokaryotes, as you can see in this diagram right here, they are just floating around in the cytoplasm. To add, when we say ribosomes are present in eukaryotic cells, it's important to note that they're present in both plant and animal eukaryotes. And this is an important distinction, especially in this video, because lysosomes are only present in animal eukaryotes. So the function of ribosomes is basically to synthesize proteins during the translation step. So if you go back to the central dogma, you can see down here, DNA, RNA to protein. DNA to RNA occurs through the process of transcription, and then RNA to protein occurs through the process of translation. So this translation step is the part that ribosomes are involved in, right here. Ribosomes, it's important to realize that they do not have an outer membrane, which is interesting to think about since they are an organelle within the cell. They are made up of a combination of RNA and protein. And you can see in these diagrams, so on the top right up here, this is a eukaryotic cell. So the eukaryotic cells have the endoplasmic reticulum outside of the nucleus. So you have the ribosomes connected on the surface of the rough ER as well as floating free in the cytoplasm. And then down here in the prokaryotic cell, you can see that the ribosomes are all free floating, as we pointed out earlier. The ribosome is able to read the messenger RNAs and assist with the binding of the amino acids to the transfer RNAs in order to build up the polypeptide chains, and that process, again, is called translation. So now we're going to move on to lysosomes. You can think of lysosomes as the recycling center and process. So the recycling truck is able to, in the case of the lysosomes, engulf different waste products or other materials in the cell that need to be broken down. And then inside of the lysosome, they have hydrolytic enzymes that will help break down the parts into monomers, which is what these workers are doing in this diagram here. Lysosomes are present, as I mentioned earlier, in eukaryotic animal cells only. They're not present in plant cells, and they're not present in prokaryotes. Lysosomes float freely in the cytoplasm. Their functions are for intracellular digestion, so they're breaking up the large molecules like carbohydrates into useful nutrients like simple sugars. And then just one example, they do the same thing for lipids and proteins, etc. The second function is that they remove waste from the cell. They're known as a suicide sac, and some people would say, because they will break down the old and dead cells. And then they also play a major role in immune response by engulfing microorganisms and then breaking them down so that they can no longer harm the body. So in this diagram down here, this is pointing out that this is the lysosome inside of a eukaryotic animal cell. This outer layer here, that like palish color, this is the plasma membrane with the surface proteins, and then the blue stuff in here is the cytoplasm, and these green dots are representing all of the hydrolytic enzymes or the digestive enzymes that can break down materials. Lysosomes are a membrane-bound organelle, as we just discussed. They're highly acidic, so this is really important in the ability of the eukaryotes to compartmentalize their different reactions. Because it is acidic, it needs to be kept separate in order for those enzymes to survive. And then in turn, the acidity does not damage the cell as well. So their pH is very different than the pH in the other parts of the cell. And this will hold true for a number of different cellular structures as well. And again, they're made up of hydrolytic enzymes and membrane proteins. So as a brief summary of ribosomes and lysosomes, ribosomes are present in both eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells, while lysosomes are only in eukaryotic cells. Ribosomes are involved in protein synthesis, specifically in the translation step, whereas lysosomes are involved with intracellular digestion and waste removal, and remember, as well as their immune response. Ribosomes can either float free in the cytoplasm or be bound to the rough ER, whereas lysosomes are always floating around in the cytoplasm. Remember, ribosomes have no outer membrane, whereas lysosomes do. And ribosomes are made up of RNA and protein, while lysosomes are made up of digestive enzymes and protein. And an important link to note between these two structures is that ribosomes, if you remember, those are the ones that are translating the polypeptides, the mRNA to polypeptides. So the ribosomes are making the digestive enzymes, because remember, enzymes are proteins. They're helping make the digestive enzymes that the lysosomes use. So I hope this video helped your understanding of the cellular organelles, and thank you.